The Indy cars are at Pennsylvania International Speedway for the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Mario's hometown, where the banners here declare Arrivederci Mario as he's ready to drive his last oval race in an Indy car. This is Paul Page, and the battle for points now focuses on second, and the contestants are in the front row with Gary Gerald.
Paul, it's the fourth time this year that we've seen an all-Penske front row, but it's the first time we've seen the combination of Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi side by side in row number one. And there was high drama in qualifying yesterday. Tracy, in the middle of the qualifying session, had a blistering lap. 19.4 seconds, looked like he would easily be on the pole as he broke the track record. But with just 3 qualifiers remaining in the session, it was Emerson Fittipaldi. He came up with a 19.3-second run, 185.6 miles per hour, the fastest qualifying 1-mile lap ever in an Indy car by any driver. So he's on the pole. He gets one precious point in the bid for second place in the standings. Tracy denied the point that would have moved him closer to Michael Andretti. But it hasn't been a storybook weekend yet for this Penske team. Al Unser Jr. clinched the championship last week at Elkhart. He's had problems this week finding speed. He starts today 18th. It's his worst starting position of the season. He's back in row 9. More stories on the starting grid. Let's check in with Jan Beekes.
Gary, for the first time in over a year and a half at Elkhart Lake, we had a first-time winner in the IndyCar Series. That, of course, was Jacques Villeneuve. Well, what is this team's speed secret? First of all, checking in with Barry Green, co-owner of this team, he says that Jacques has a special ability to perform under pressure. He says he actually goes faster the more pressure there is. Now, Tony Sicali, his engineer, feels that Jacques, at 23 years old, has a very good understanding of the car technically. Now, that relationship between engineer and driver has paid big dividends. This team's only regret, they didn't have more than a week to savor that first victory.
One thing all of these drivers here today, all 26, will have to contend with is a rather brisk wind that blows across this track. You know, motorsports coverage of television is always the leading edge in television technology, and today we have a major breakthrough for you. For those of you that enjoy your IndyCar racing, as it always has been, well, here at ESPN1, we're going to have our regular coverage. But if you love those onboard cameras, on ESPN2, we'll have coverage from the time they start their engines through the checkered flag, only from onboard cameras, with an occasional update from the Deuce's Sally Larvik.
Well, Paul, it's really going to be exciting. There are actually 12 onboard cameras divided up among 6 cars, including Michael Andretti and Robbie Gordon, 2 who are still vying for championship points. You'll also hear two-way radio communication between some of the drivers and their teams. There'll be little television commentary. We'll only break in when we think that there's something that you really need to know. So if you have ESPN2, grab your remote control and get ready for some sports technology innovative between ESPN and the Deuce.
Or better yet, get out both television sets and push them side by side. Now, you already heard that Al Unser Jr. is well back in this starting field. You may think, well, he's out of the fight, he's won his championship. That is definitely not the case. He really wants to score a record number of wins in the season. And then there's the situation with the Penske team itself. Those 1, 2, 3 finishes this year have only inspired them to come home 1, 2, 3 in the PPG championship. Now, so much so, in fact, that in the team itself, they would feel that they've had a bad season if they didn't finish 1, 2, and 3. And it's that kind of thinking that makes the Penske team so powerful. Dynasty, a person or group that maintains dominance over an extended period of time. When one thinks of a sports dynasty, you think of the Yankees, led by the likes of Ruth and Gehrig. With Terry Bradshaw, the Pittsburgh Steelers held the NFL hostage in the 70s. In the 80s, the Lakers were magic with 5 NBA championships. And Gretzky showed greatness in the NHL. But no one has dominated a sport like Roger Penske. From his success as a driver to his early days as an owner, Roger's philosophy has been simple and straightforward. Effort equals results. The effort has been chronicled. Doing the difficult commonplace. The results have been spectacular. 10 wins in Indy with 7 different drivers. 9 times Roger's teams have taken the PPG Cup. But surprisingly enough, Unser Jr.'s crown is Penske's first in 6 years. Why is there a Penske dynasty? Because while most of us dream of the future, Roger is already working on it. At the Bosch Park Club Grand Prix, one of the many banners saying arrivederci to Mario Andretti. They do love him here in the Lehigh Valley. You know, every year we try to come up with a way to show you what the changes in the drivers and teams are going to be, and we always fail. So we called in Victor Starr.
Well, thank you very much, Pete. Silly season here at Nazareth International Motors Speedway. Rumors flying. Will Donnie Sullivan return to IndyCar racing? What about Tracy Paul? But it's also silly season in the pit crews, as we found in this touching human interest story. Perfect. Meet Travis Sparky Plugman, a pit crew guy who left racing after a tragic squeegee accident at the Northern Manitoba Dirt Track Invitational 11 years ago. He's a complicated man looking for work, and he found this weekend that finding a job during the silly season is equally complicated.
Have you had a chance to talk to Roger Penske yet?
Who?
Roger Penske.
Marlboro, that's my team, I think, next year. Can you hook me up maybe with Roger?
Yeah, well, if you get a haircut.
Anything I should know, you know, as far as just hooking on?
Well, I might try some Altoids for your breath, first of all.
Don't call me, buddy. I'll call you. Huh?
My mother's side of the family's all Googleman.
No, mine is actually Guglielmi.
Guglielmi? Goodyear doesn't have a blimp.
Not confused, I'm not from Brazil.
Italy. Well, I'm from down south, too.
By midday, Sparky was simply wrestling with the rampant rumors about the torturous, twisted trail of team transition.
You got that old second car now. Now, you got a driver for that car yet?
No.
Is there some kind of rumor you can give me about, you know, that silly season, where you're going, where you're going to wind up?
Where I'm going?
You don't understand what I'm
I don't know where I'm going.
Still looking?
Still looking.
Come again? Got anybody in mind?
Yeah.
Can't tell me, though, can you?
Right.
How you doing, Michael? Hey, how come you're retiring next year? I think you got plenty of time left. You need a squeegee guy for that car?
Squeegee? No.
Come again?
At day's end, still jobless, still clueless, Sparky set his sights on Laguna Seca and the subsiding insanity of silly season. That's human interest, silly season style. This is Victor Starr from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Let's throw it back up to the broadcast booth and Paige Paul. Paige? That's my turn.
Thank you, Vicky. That's ESPN2's Victor Starr, and let me tell you, that's not so far from the truth. That's about as much information as we get on silly season. One thing, though, for the drivers who are changing, Derek Daly, is the fact that today is show-off day.
It really is. Now that the championship is over, there are only 2 opportunities for a driver to show how good they are. Now, unfortunately, as you know, Paul, you're only as good as your last result in racing. So drivers like Paul Tracy now use this weekend to show or to reconfirm just how good he is, maybe for the benefit of future new employers. Raul Boesel, he only has 2 more opportunities to get that elusive win that he's been so close to for himself and for Dick Simon Racing. So the intensity level is just as strong as ever, but it's now focused into a different direction.
So now we move closer to the second from last call for the start of the engines. And when we come back on ESPN2, it will be onboard coverage, flag to flag. We're back in Nazareth, Pennsylvania at the Bosch Park Plug Grand Prix, and we're now ready for the start of the engines. Let's send you down to the pit area. And Ben Dixon, the Senior Vice President of Robert Bosch Corporation.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
The command coming from Ben Dixon, the Bosch Corporation.
So the tornado is about to be unleashed on the mile here in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. The first 6 drivers in the field all broke Michael Andretti's 92 record. The pole sitter is Emerson Fittipaldi, a 2-time winner here at Nazareth. This is his 2nd pole of the season. Alongside 0.08 of a second back is Paul Tracy. He must win today to keep any hopes alive of a 2nd place in the championship. In the 2nd row is Nigel Mansell. His last IndyCar win was here a year ago. And Robbie Gordon. Last week was only the 3rd time this year that Robbie has failed to finish. In row 3 on the inside is Mario Andretti, making his last start on an oval before his hometown crowd. And Raul Boesel, this is his worst start on an oval this year. In the 4th row, it's Jacques Villeneuve. He earned his first IndyCar win last week at Elkhart. And Mark Smith, this is his best career start on an oval. In the 5th row is Teo Fabi. He finished 4th last week for the 3rd time this year. And Stefan Johansson, making his 3rd start at Nazareth. In the 6th row is Adrian Fernandez, who scored his first top 5 finish last week at Elkhart. And Jimmy Vasser. He's scored points in 4 of 5 oval races this year. The 7th row is Bobby Rahal, the 1992 winner here. And Mauricio Gugelmin. In the 8th row is Ari Leyendyk, who won here in 91. And Dominic Dobson. In row 9, it's Scott Sharp. And Al Unser Jr. still looking for that record 9th win. Row 10 is Michael Andretti, who won the first IndyCar race here in 87. And Mike Groff. In the 11th row, it's Scott Goodyear and Hiro Matsushita. Row number 12, Eddie Cheever and the Brazilian Marco Greco. In the 13th and final row, it's Willie T. Ribbs and Alessandro Zampedri. So 26 Indy cars ready to take the green flag. On board there with Nigel Mansell riding on the outside. Michael Andretti's car riding over his right rear tire. Robbie Gordon's car, a key contender in the fight for 3rd place. Looking back from Adrian Fernandez's machine. Onboard cameras throughout the field. There's Dominic Dobson's over-the-shoulder view in a car that he wrecked this morning. And off the nose of Bobby Rahal's car. As the field tries to scrub their tires in for this 200-mile race, Nigel Mansell has the race record, and the first fuel stop should come at about the 58th lap, but it could come as late as the 71st. Very, very tight race course. Very unusual for an oval. Not a true oval, in fact. A tri-oval here as we take a look at the PPG points this season. Of course, the championship already locked up, a 2-way battle developing for 2nd place. And then you can have as many as 5 different guys vying for 3rd place, and we'll keep track of all that throughout the day for you. So the PPG parade cars now pull off. Johnny Rutherford is the driver of the pace car here today as he brings that Penske front row around. And Derek, this is what this track looks like.
Well, we call it 3 corners, not a true oval. You can see that dog leg, which is flat out in turn 1. There's elevation changes, but the key here is your technique in traffic. The leaders will be in traffic most of the day. Reading the traffic ahead of time is often the key to success here. And the run on the backstretch here is a downhill run, so there's an elevation change as well. Bobby Rahal had a little bit of problems when they called for the start of the engine, but they finally got his engine started, and he rolls into position with the rest of this field. So as they circulate around, we're very close to the start here. 200 laps, 200 miles. The race record, Nigel Mansell, 158.6 miles an hour. And remember, last year, this race was yellow flagged at the start, but then ran the whole distance green flag. Here's the downhill run to what they call turn 3. That's where they brake. In qualifying, Fittipaldi didn't use the brakes.
So they come into alignment. Jim Swintal, the IndyCar starter with the green flag, watches for them to come down. There's the green. Here we go. Fittipaldi pulls quickly into the lead. The rest of the field comes through. Safely through 1. Tracy up to challenge, moves to the outside. Long sweep, and Paul Tracy moves to the lead. Nigel Mansell into 3rd. Gordon is 4th, but challenging Mansell on the outside. Gordon comes into 3rd place.
And was that the bravery of youth that we saw displayed by Tracy? Round the outside, a daring move on cold tires at the early stages. But Tracy, look at the command he has.
And Robbie Gordon saw that it worked, so he came around Nigel Mansell, picked up 3rd place. Mansell back to 4th.
Gordon loves that outside move during practice and qualifying. He was the highest line driver on a regular basis because he said, that's where I like to race. That gives me the opportunity. And we saw that on his move on Mansell.
So Robbie Gordon, a man on a mission. He wants to get up in those points. So he's in a good position for the start of next year. Raul Boesel now closing in on Mario Andretti. Raul looking for any position that he can find. Mario's never won here, but he is comfortable on this track. He won when this was a dirt track years ago. And Roger Penske bought it, paved it over. There's our latest winner. Jacques Villeneuve, he runs in 6th.
Something unique about Villeneuve in qualifying, he was the only driver who actually changed gear. He went through turns 3 and 4, or turn 3 in 5th gear, and changed up a gear down this front straight. I don't think he likes to do that all through the race, though.
Raul closing up on Mario Andretti. A battle for 4th place.
Mario, one of the most difficult drivers to pass. He knows how to position his car between the concrete walls here. You better not just poke your nose inside, Mario. You better get all the way down, or he will chop your nose off.
Mario's teammate, Nigel Mansell. You have an update, Gary?
Indeed, the defending champion, Paul, experiencing some handling difficulties. Massive oversteer, they're saying. The car very loose. Also, Scott Goodyear reporting his car is loose. So already in the opening handful of laps, loose conditions under this bright sun for a couple of drivers.
A bright sun should be the factor for the entire day, but the wind is very brisk, blowing head-on down the main straightaway right now. Jan Vikas, you have more?
Well, according to Nigel Mansell's situation, we're checking into that, and Nigel is asking, did anyone touch me? Did I have contact? The car is handling that bad that I feel at the moment as though maybe there's something askew in the front of my car.
Well, we certainly didn't see any obvious contact.
Mansell so spectacular here when he won the race and the championship last year, but loose has been one of the biggest problems here all weekend. Goodyear came here with a bigger stagger tire than they've ever come here with. Some cars like it. The cars that don't like it are inherently loose. Let me tell you, a loose handling car between these concrete walls at these speeds is downright scary for the driver.
Well, and as a matter of fact, in an Indy car, when they set the car up, correct me if I'm wrong, with a new driver, they always like to put push into the car and then work back to loose just because of the danger factor. Leaders back in traffic now as they encounter the back of the field for the first time today. Tracy, then Fittipaldi, but Fittipaldi staying very tight on Tracy, keeping a close eye.
Tracy, so good, so brave, has made mistakes in the past, but he is a man that's hard to catch when he is on form. But he knows he can't make many mistakes here. Will he stay with Penske? Will he move on? We do not know that yet.
And Jacques Villeneuve now moving up in the field as once again the Penske's stay in contact, and Paul Tracy is able to sweep around a slower car. And now Fittipaldi comes around as well, so they stay back in contact. Jacques Villeneuve was able to move up into 4th place and get right behind Robbie Gordon. There he is, and that's Gordon just ahead.
Gordon without the benefit of his regular engineer, Tim Wardrop here. We now look over Gordon's shoulder. Tim Wardrop from England. At home, his son took ill, so he did the right thing. He's with his family. However, he gives the team the setup before they get here, and they have done a superb job. Look at that outside line again for Gordon. That's Mike Croft down the inside, but Gordon loves to be daring. Now he's outside Villeneuve.
Villeneuve gets down on the inside, splits Gordon to the outside. Now they both come around and are trying to get around. I was going to suggest that they both made it around Matsushita, but only Villeneuve did it, and so that moves him into 3rd place. Gordon got caught.
And you got the view from the driver's seat as Villeneuve creeps down the inside when Gordon was busy going around the outside.
So at the front of the field, Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi, then Jacques Villeneuve, and look at there.
He's in trouble.
Oh, Boycell as he comes flying around Gordon. Now, what do we have? We have a problem with Gordon.
He is clearly in trouble. If he moves high and cars pass him that easily, he is in trouble. Jan Vikas has more.
Yes, we found out a few laps ago that he radioed in and said the car was starting to become loose. Just like you said, Derek, obviously things have gotten much worse. We're standing by in case he ducks into the pits.
Well, second driver to report that everything is loose. Is that because they set these cars up when it was not nearly as sunny as it is right now?
It could be. Temperature has such a large effect on these racing cars. I don't want to blame Goodyear or say Goodyear. They have come here with a tire that is different than before. However, it's much faster than before.
Battle now, Stefan Johansson, as again they split a slower car, and again it comes to the advantage of the challenger as Stefan Johansson comes around around Gordon and moves into 4th place.
Well, Gordon may be forced to make a pit stop earlier than he wants here. He is losing so much time on the racetrack. It may pay him to come out of sequence, get into the pits, and try and get it fixed.
So So it's Paul Tracy that jumps the lead early on and takes it away from Fittipaldi, but we've got a great battle at the front of the field, and Al Unser is up to 10th. 21 laps are complete at the Bosch Park Plug Grand Prix as Paul Tracy is the leader of the race. For the time being, at least, Fittipaldi has dropped back as Tracy now has the very difficult task of circling his way through traffic, which he must do the entire day, unless, of course, there is a caution that packs the field up again. But remember, at this race just last year, they ran bright green all the way.
Emotional roller coaster for Tracy as we look back. He did have that baby boy on Tuesday named Conrad. Got home, was there at the birth. Look at Villeneuve again, sneaks down the inside. Bozell is there, but he's under attack now from Johansson, who wasn't as quick in practice and qualifying because he had wastegate troubles, but he is flying.
And Nigel Mansell peels off and heads for his stop. His teammate Mario was in a little earlier, Gary.
Yeah, Mansell is coming in, and that handling condition is just too bad, so they're bringing him in early. Watch for changes up there in the front wing. We think they're going to make a couple of turn adjustment. The tires and the fueling process is routine. Now the change on the left front side, and it is a massive change. Mansell still waiting, ready to go. Now they complete the change on the right side. He's rolling in just under 15 seconds, but a costly early stop on the handling for Nigel Mansell.
Well, Gary reported a massive change to the left side. We saw a rather massive change to the right as well.
4 big turns of that front wing, reduced the downforce, try and at least get a safety factor built into this car, because if he doesn't get the loose condition out of it, he can't hope to be a challenge at all. Gordon again goes around the outside.
On board, Mansell now. Continuing green flag racing, 25 laps into the record book. Jacques Villeneuve, followed by Bozell and by Johansson. Johansson looked like he washed the back end there for just a second, but he stays in close contact on Raoul. Three-way battle for third place.
Yeah, Bozell and Johansson have had a good run here. Sometimes you guess on the setup, and if you guess right, you can be so much faster than cars that are in trouble here. Things happen so fast, and you remember you're in corners more often here than any other racetrack they go to.
Al Unser Jr. continues to try and fight his way to the front. Take a look at this. He started in 18th place. He now runs up in 6th. And Eddie Cheever started 23rd. He's now running in 8th. He had a great run during the morning warm-up, and it's proving to last here in the race itself. Let's go to the pits again, and Gary. Gary?
Let's follow up on that Mario Andretti situation. He did have a punctured tire. He had a tire going down. That's why his early stop. And we are getting constant reports from other drivers, including Lyondike. We've mentioned Gordon at Goodyear, all having handling difficulties, trying to find that very delicate balance. Looks like Eddie Cheever, who was so happy this morning, Paul, they may have found the sweet spot.
Well, and I'll tell you, a guy with a really sweet spot is Al Unser Jr. As yet another pass around Johansson. Now he's trying to set sights on Bozell.
And sometimes sometimes it looks easy, but a man with an awful lot of problems as Michael Andretti has been nowhere near the pace all weekend here. Said the car was horrible, it scares him, and all the changes they made in the warm-up this morning has come to naught. But Al Jr. is on a charge.
And as you saw there, Michael already lapped by the leaders. Spectacular crowd here in Nazareth this weekend. The stands are full, and they've added a couple of new ones.
You might ask, how come Al Jr. qualified so badly all the way down in 18th place? Well, he tried brand new sticker tires, and he could not get enough temperature into those tires. Therefore, he was just had half a second off the pace, and Mario's back in.
Mario with more trouble as he's back in the pits. The indication was that he had a wheel weight come off of that car. That isn't going to help the handling, so they came back in to effect a repair. Gary Gerald, can you update that?
Well, Paul, I don't know if it would relate to a wheel weight problem, but they did make a huge change on the right front wing for Mario as he made that very quick stop.
Back now, focusing on Jacques Villeneuve as Al Unser Jr. continues to charge on him. Little Al, boy, look at this run, comes up through the field. Now Little Al in 3rd place. Penske cars run 1, 2, 3.
Al Jr., as you know, spends more time working on his race setup. Practice and qualifying doesn't interest him that much.
only when you put 40 gallons of fuel in, that's what he likes to work on. Here's the benefit right here. He seems to be able to have the consistency of handling, not just to be fast in one lap, but Al Jr. seems to be able to protect those tires, and we've seen it earlier in oval tracks this year. Now we see it here again from our champion.
And remember, Al Unser Jr. not satisfied just with a championship as he swings to the outside around slower traffic, comes around Rahal now. He wants another win. In fact, he would like 2 more.
Just look at the speed Al Jr. has over everybody. Inside, outside, it doesn't make any difference. There's enough room here. This turn 1 that's flat out in top gear. Roll out of the power here. Just balance the car over the top of the hill. This is a hill. That's Jimmy Vasser down to the inside. Then the plunge and the run downhill to turn 3 under braking.
Couple of reports from the pits now. First, Gary Gerald.
Relating to that situation for Al Unser Jr., Richard Buck, his crew chief, was taking a lot of heat from his teammates. Say they were back in 18th position. They were going for the bonus money that Championship Auto Mechanics provide for the car that passes the most positions. He's already gained 15. He's got his eye on more money. Jan?
Speaking about Raul Boisel, who has moved his way up into 5th place, we said everyone's going loose. Well, we checked with Dick Simon, team owner. He says, well, we're actually pushing. Now, of course, if that car is pushing now, maybe that car will really hit the sweet spot in a few laps. Raul Boisel on the move.
Well, Boisel trying to battle with Jacques Villeneuve, but a couple of laps ago, guys, you can't believe he was down on the rumble strip. The car gave a big pitch. He got it back under control and continues his pursuit of Boisel.
Oh, that looked like a bit of a scary move to me. When you're 23 years of age, you don't mind sticking wheels on the grass. You won't get away with that very often when you run at this speed between the concrete walls, as Rahal, who's obviously in trouble, gets passed by Boisel. That's Boisel chasing Villeneuve right ahead. Whoa! Round the outside, one of the Penske's.
You noticed on the earlier coverage that Paul Tracy is also able to slide past everybody and has now lapped most of the field. Fittipaldi still runs in 2nd place and tries to stay in contact. So Paul Tracy is the leader, followed by Fittipaldi and then Al Unser Jr. 3 Penske cars at the top, then Villeneuve, and that battle with Boisel. Back at the Bosch Sparkplug Grand Prix, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, R.A. Lyondike just pulled behind the wall. Problems with his gearbox. He is out of the race. Paul Tracy is still the leader, as there you see the rundown at the conclusion of 42 laps. But they run so fast, the leader is already on lap 44, and Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi are running a race all by themselves, but still moving into that race about 12 seconds behind the leaders is Al Unser Jr., doing everything he can to close in.
That's Johansson that's just about to get passed by Emerson. Gets a good look at the car that he will drive next year, because Tony Bettenhausen will buy 2 of those Penske's for Johansson for next season. What a car he'll be in.
Johansson always seems to do a super. Oh, 1 car into the wall very quickly, and it's Mario.
Things happen so fast here. He clips Cheever coming out of turn 2, and his last oval track race ends with the car destroyed.
Mario appears to be okay already. The kart safety team is there. Very quick touch, what looked to be Eddie Cheever's car, and then spin quickly into the wall.
Well, I think Mario thought he was all the way past Cheever, when in fact he wasn't, because if you look at this, in fact, Cheever is so fast, I don't think Mario even knew that Cheever was trying to go down the outside, because Mario's right rear clipped the left front suspension of Cheever's car. Here it is. Cheever's going faster on the outside line. Mario doesn't know he's there, moves over. Cars touch. Cheever's left front suspension, Mario's right rear. And that's it. So the leaders take this opportunity to pit under yellow.
So the first stop for the leaders come on the 47th lap. Paul Tracy in and out under the yellow flag. A lot of debris still out there on the course. It appears that Eddie Cheever's car is in fact okay, but there will be some cleanup time here as they get all of the parts and pieces back off of the race course. Mario Andretti, the first report from safety 2, the truck that he sits in now, is that he is fine and he does appear to be okay, but Mario's career on IndyCar ovals is now over. Gary Gerald?
Busy here in the Penske pits. The first two cars, Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi, came in, made routine stops in service, got back out. Al Unser, they're keeping on the track right now, so he has moved up. We don't know just when he'll be coming in as we go to Jan.
Well, when Paul Tracy did come in, there was a slight adjustment, Gary. They took one turn out of the right front wing. So the Penske cars at the moment are not immune to this looseness, trying to put a little more push into Tracy's car.
And you saw that Eddie Cheever's car suffered some problems as well to the left front, and Eddie is out of the car, and they pulled it back into the paddock area. On board from Bobby Rahall's car, a view of that situation.
This is into turn 2, up over the hill. That's Cheever on the outside of Mario. He's on the outside. Mario doesn't see him. Car's touched. Oh, look at Rahal. Down change on the brakes. Tries to dodge. Goes right, left, right. Then misses everything and gets on his way.
Rahal wondering for a moment there where that car was going to end up, whether it was going to stay up on the wall or come back into the center of the course. An anxious moment for Bobby Rahal and the rest that follow behind. So we're under yellow for the first time today at the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix.
Our champion, Al Unser Jr., did elect to come into the pits, but he changed his front wing up instead of down. So maybe Al Unser Jr. had just a slight bit of push, a different strategy than we saw for Paul Tracy. Now, Gary has more. Gary?
We're alongside Eddie Cheever, Jan. And Eddie, can you tell us now, there was contact between you and Mario.
Me, Mario, the wall. I was just passing him and a group of other cars on the outside, coming out of 2, and he just went wide. I'm sure he didn't see me, because if he did see me, I don't think he would do something as silly as that. I mean, I had absolutely no place to go. He put me between his car, my cars, between him and the wall, and I tried to brake, but I couldn't do anything. So I hit the wall, then I hit him, and it's unfortunate. My car was going very well. We had a very bad practice session, but it was really going good in the race. I think we were like 7th.
Yeah, you had gained probably as many positions as anybody except maybe Al Unser Jr.
Probably more, because I started farther back than he did.
How about your plans for next season, Eddie?
I'm working on a couple of things. I've really enjoyed working with Foyt in Copenhagen, but before I even came here, we knew that we were both going to be doing something else in '95. It's been a lot of fun. AJ he's the salt of the earth. I'm glad that I got to work with him. And Copenhagen is a great company to drive for, and it's a pity today. I thought we could have finished probably in the top 3.
Will you have your own team next year?
Who knows? Maybe.
All right. Thanks, Eddie. Paul?
Always a good comment, though, coming from Eddie Cheever. Very marvelous guy, not only in speaking, but in his riding. We'll be back with more of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. Grand Prix, ready to go back to green flag racing anytime now. A couple of penalties. First of all, Dominic Dobson was brought in for a speed violation. The same with Stefan Johansson for a violation on the warm-up lane, and a pit blend line violation for Marco Greco. Here with us in the booth is the true voice of motorsports worldwide. You hear him on all the Formula One coverage, commentator of the BBC, and of course the voice of Formula One, Murray Walker. Good to have you here.
Well, this is a great experience for me. I sit at home and I listen to Derek and yourself doing the Indian races.
Well, Murray, for some reason, typical, we're not hearing you, but we'll get you on in just a second. Murray is here with John Watson, his partner now in Formula One coverage, seeing their first mile run as we come back to green flag racing. Boy, look at Villeneuve as he drops to the inside alongside Mark Smith.
Well, let's see what he did. Brakes to the inside, and look how high and wide he washed all the way up to the outside of the groove. You can do that when you're brave, but it's always better when you warm those tires up first.
A move for someone young and brave. Villeneuve runs in 7th place. Adrian Fernandez ahead of him is his target. Paul Tracy, of course, the leader, followed by Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Boycel, Stefan Johansson, then Fernandez, and then Villeneuve.
Interesting, we heard the report that Unser put some more downforce in the front of his car. If he was that fast with a bit of understeer, what's going to happen now if he can balance that car and make it even faster? Look at those sticker tires on Matt Schuster's car. You need to get those stickers off before he's going to go fast.
Over the shoulder now, Bobby Rahal. Creditable position for Bobby.
Very good. Prides himself on having one of the best handling cars on the racetrack. This team designs and builds its own shock absorbers. That is the extent that they will go to try and get their car handling better. Look at these Penske's all in the line.
Al Unser Jr. as he comes around Nigel. Now you ride on board.
Here's the problem with a loose car that Mansell had that we reported earlier. On an oval track, when your speed is above 150 miles an hour, you simply cannot drive it sideways. You have only an option to back out of the power. Outside lines again by the Penske's.
Back at the front of the field, the battle now heating up for third place. Al Unser Jr. and his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. Now separated by only one car, that of Scott Sharp.
Al Jr. so disappointed in that qualifying run, but you had to be here to see what Emerson did yesterday when everybody had already conceded the pole after Tracy's superb run. Then Emerson went out and blitzed everybody. At 47 years of age, he absolutely jumped out of the cockpit with delight and celebrated with his crew. Great to see it yesterday.
Keep tracking on that battle for second. Tracy leads Fittipaldi, then Unser Jr., then Raul Boisel. On board with Michael.
There's no doubt Michael is a lame duck here this afternoon. You see him pull to the inside is not a challenge. One of the most spectacular drivers in IndyCar racing. When the car is not right, you cannot put the thing on your back and drag it around, no matter how much talent you possess.
And there comes little Al around. Boy, there gives you an idea of the differential between the two machines. Michael Andretti runs in 13th. It's been a tough weekend for Michael. 65 laps into the record book. Paul Tracy the leader. There's your third place car. Al Unser Jr. still trying to close on Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi making some wide moves. Being very brave himself, trying to stay away from little Al. Around Boisel, Mark Smith just ahead. Little Al closes up.
And there's a traffic jam that he got caught in. You see that? Fittipaldi got stuck behind Mark Smith, couldn't go left or right, and Al Jr. almost pounced.
Very, very tight racing as little Al now coming up to get right on the back of Emerson Fittipaldi. They've been closing the gap steadily, but at the same time, Paul Tracy has been able to pull away from Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Mario Andretti, tell us how you're feeling and what happened now.
I got a good thump in the back, you know, on the back straightaway, and just went right into the wall. You know, it was a lot of traffic at that point. You know, a lot of cars around, and I don't know. I guess somebody miscued on that.
Particular disappointment. I know that competitive fire is so bright, and you want to do well the last time to run here at the home track, and all the family, the friends.
Naturally, you know, I would have loved to have done well here, especially, but for some reason or other, the car would only last under me about 4 or 5 laps, and it would go so loose that I had a tough time even defending the position. So, you know, it almost got me out of my misery out there, because it was really a tough way to go. I think I was watching Nigel. He had about the same problem, as really loose.
Mario, we thank you very much. We wish you well at Laguna.
Robbie Gordon in the pits, also Nigel Mansell. Gordon obviously done for the day. It's too bad. He's had a season of great consistency. Now a series of failures. Last week at Elkhart, this week here.
Sorry to see Mario go. Celebrations all week. Even the Coke cans at the local pizza had the Arrivederci Mario tour on them.
So now Al Unser Jr. definitely in contact with second place Emerson Fittipaldi. 71 laps into the record book. Separation so tight the stopwatch doesn't matter anymore.
People wonder, is Al Jr. happy with the championship? Now he'll take it easy? No. Remember, he wants to set a new single-season record for the number of wins, which he currently is tied with Michael at 8. He wants to make it 9.
They close on traffic once again. Remember, that's so often the deciding factor on a mile. And look just behind them. Raul Boisel is very definitely staying in contact. around Dominic Dobson.
Big crash this morning for Dobson. We watched it as it happened. We had this particular shot here as he came through this corner right here. He came up over the top of the hill. The car got away from him, and then bang.
Dominic's motor a little rough. Got a bit of a rattle there for a moment, but it appears to have dissipated just that quickly. As at the front of the field, it remains Paul Tracy. Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. continue their battle for second. Raul Boisel runs in fourth place. We're back in the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. You can see that Al Unser Jr. is continuing to try and battle with Emerson Fittipaldi. Look at this, just a lap ago.
And this is too brave for comfort. Down. Wheels on the grass, trying to pass Villeneuve. Half the car gets on the grass, and Al Jr. takes the opportunity to go around the outside. Emerson, at 47 years of age, what are you at?
So Emerson Fittipaldi slides back into third place. Al Unser Jr. is into second now, and starting an attack on the leader of the race, his teammate Paul Tracy. We introduced him a while ago. I hate to go through such a grand introduction once again, but you truly have been an inspiration to so many of us who do this. Murray Walker, welcome. What do you think of all of this?
Paul, this is an absolutely incredible experience for me. I sit at home at weekends normally listening to Derek and yourself talking about the Indy races. I'm used to lap times of about 1 minute and 20 seconds. Here they are going round in 20 seconds. This is tremendous for me because I'm here as a guest of Roger Penske. His cars are first, second and third, and they are made only 15 miles away from where I live. So I feel it's almost like a bit of home. I'm a bit disappointed to see that my hero Nigel Mansell, who did so well last year here, is not doing so well here because he's right down in the field. But this is absolutely sensational racing. Sadly, Formula One these days tends to be a bit processional, but to see that passing move that Derek Daly just described now was quite unbelievable. What are they doing? 185 miles an hour down the straightaway, such as it is.
All of that. Nigel Mansell back in 17th place, and we give him back to you next year.
Yeah, I know. We're looking forward to him coming back to Formula One for 3 races at the end of this year. I've been talking to him a lot while he's here. He's all fired up. I know he's very sorry to be leaving Indy racing, but we're going to be very pleased to have him back because Formula One needs a bit of drama and excitement, and wherever Nigel is, something is happening.
Murray, great to talk to you. Can you let us in on the scoop here? Do you know where Nigel will be next year?
I don't know, Derek. My suspicion is that he's going to be with Williams if he gets the last 3 races of this year right. But the interesting political point is that he will have to defer to Damon Hill in order to allow Hill to get as many World Championship points as possible. And Nigel does not like deferring to anyone.
Let's go down to the pits. Robbie Gordon, we mentioned out of the race, Jan.
Robbie Gordon does join us here on pit lane. Robbie, what is it that put you out? We saw smoke from the right rear.
We lost the right rear wheel bearing. We had a good car when we started the race for about 5 laps. Then I think the wheel bearing went out, and it was making the right rear toe out, and that was our problem why we were going back in such a hurry. But we came in, tried taking some wing out, it went back out, and it started smoking. We came in. Luckily, we caught it before we got the wall.
We did have a preliminary report that you may have made contact when the car was loose with another car or the wall. Is that the case?
No, we didn't touch anything. We were just kind of riding along, trying to get some points here, and just unfortunate we haven't had any luck on the Valvoline team lately.
Robbie Gordon out early. Paul?
And of course that effectively takes him out of any chance for third place in the points. So the 31 car, Al Unser Jr. on the move, trying to catch the leader of the race, his teammate Paul Tracy, as Nigel Mansell says, come on around me on that side. I feel a little safer with you to be the outside.
So Mansell clearly not in contention despite the changes we saw made to his car during that pit stop. He points. He knows he's no challenge. He's quite happy to just let those Penske's go along. He's not in the race.
89 laps in the record book now. 200 laps of scheduled distance. We've had 1 caution today. That when Mario Andretti and Eddie Cheever got together, eventually taking both out of the race. 200 miles, the distance of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy maintaining about the same interval for the last couple of laps. But Fittipaldi's trying to stay in the fight, too.
One of the problems here for drivers, not only do you have to look ahead, but you have to look behind here more than any other racetrack. But you have to be aware of faster cars because they move outside you so quickly here, which is probably what we saw happen to Mario with Cheever. Whoa, Penske down the inside of Rahal. Rahal not having a good day.
Look at that speed of closure, though. I mean, all of these cars are running incredibly fast, as Murray already suggested. And then you get blown away like that. What a feeling that has to be. Do you hear it in the cockpit when that happens to you?
Oh, you hear it. You hear it. The problem is, when you're not a factor, that's when you have to look in your mirrors even more, which makes it even more difficult for you.
Here's a fight for 5th place. Villeneuve and Fernandez. Fernandez has had a wonderful string of races lately, coming up with his best finishes of his IndyCar career. Let's take a look at the performance on board the car with some Delco Electronics telemetry.
And this has to be, as we look over his shoulder at the Delco Electronics, this has to be the most colorful onboard billboard that we have in IndyCar racing now. Everybody in Mexico jumps up and down when this man comes on the screen. And what a job he is doing for Rick Gallas towards the back half of this year. He was a novice. Rick Gallas took a chance on this man, but he believed in his talent, and he is proving his point.
You know, when you talk about the changing, Nigel Mansell has reported to his crew that he's going to come in and come out of the race, and that looks like exactly what he's doing, Jan Bikas.
Paul, they suspected possibly something has broken on this car because they have made some major adjustments, and Nigel Mansell still has massive oversteer. So with a track like this, you cannot run at these kind of speeds with a car that loose. He's decided to park it.
So Nigel Mansell with just one more IndyCar race to go now before he heads back to Formula One. At the front of the field, it's still Paul Tracy being chased by Al Unser Jr. We'll be back with more of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. Back at the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix, Adrian Fernandez is trying to chase Jacques Villeneuve. He just had a very close call with Jimmy Vasser as he moved to the inside to stay in contact. In the meantime, we noted Nigel Mansell out of the race. He's now with Jan.
Nigel, we had reports your car was getting more loose as the race progressed. It continued to go that way?
Yeah, I mean, we're not quite sure what's happened because in the morning warm-up it was going very, very well. And as you can see, we made a couple of extra pit stops. We've taken 5 holes the front wing out of the car, and the car's worse than when it started. So we've just had a conversation. We've just retired the car because it's very dangerous out there with a car like that, and I'm just getting in everybody's way. Something's happened somewhere.
You have one more race to go at Laguna Seca. How important is it to you to try and win there, going winless for this season so far?
Well, I think it's important for every driver to try and win every race, you know, but I'm looking forward to going to Laguna. It's a great circuit, and I just hope the team and I have a little bit more luck for the last race.
Will you miss this kind of racetrack? Will you miss 1 mile ovals?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very exciting racetrack, and I'm just very disappointed because in the warm-up this morning the car felt really good, but I think Mario suffered like I did with a very, very loose car, and we can't fix it.
Nigel Mansell with 1 race left. Paul?
Said that you come third. Very nice car, as has
105 laps now complete. You ride on board Bobby Rahal, who just made a quick dart into the pits and out. The leader of the race is Paul Tracy, followed by his teammate Al Unser Jr., who carved his way up from 18th position to get into this challenging position behind the leader. 3rd place right now is Emerson Fittipaldi, who's still trying to stay in contact. Raoul Boisel, Villeneuve, and Johansson have been running together. Just a few laps ago, Johansson was able to move up on Villeneuve, and then finally Fernandez was able to get in just behind and continue in a fight with Villeneuve. So this is actually just a lap or 2 old. They run so fast here at this track.
I wonder, is Paul Tracy getting an advantage from the new 95 development front uprights that he is trying on his Penske here this afternoon? Maybe his speed can be attributed to that. If it is, they all want them for the next race.
Tracy very definitely on a tear. Murray Walker mentioned it earlier. He lives not far from the shop where these cars are built in Poole, England. And every time we have a race, it's not only Murray watching us, but everybody back at Poole and in fact at the Elmore shop. So we do have to extend. We kind of omitted congratulations to the people that made this possible through construction. Congratulations to the gang back in the UK.
82 people back in Poole in England under the guidance of Nick Guzzi, and already the new 95 car Fernandez makes the move on Villeneuve, but already the new Penske for next year is well under construction.
Boy, and what a nice and quick move it was as Fernandez starts inside of Villeneuve and takes over 6th place.
And there are no tricks on Fernandez's car. I spoke to Ed Nathman earlier after qualifying. He said they have no development pieces, no tricks, just a stock basic car that they come to the racetrack with, put him in it, get him as many miles as possible. But that is proving to be very effective for Fernandez.
The position for Fernandez, in fact, 5th place, as now he is being challenged again, and he will move up to challenge Raul Boisel. So the fight stays very close, and look at Teo Fabi coming in here. Teo Fabi in a fight for position now with Villeneuve. Teo looks to the inside. And he can't get that one done. Let's go pit side. Jan Beekes.
You've mentioned the battle about Jacques Villeneuve. We checked in with Barry Green. He says their car now is getting loose, and that is what is dropping Villeneuve back.
Well, there certainly is some indication of that visually. Now, Teo Fabi, they are fighting with Villeneuve, but it's not a fight for position per se. Right now, Villeneuve is running in 6th place, and Fabi is sitting a lap from him with that move. He is now back on the leader lap, so he will come around and try to close that position.
See how slow Villeneuve is off those corners. When the car is loose, you just use all the road, but you can't get onto the power. The man who came here to test 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was the fastest Indy car ever around here at that particular test. Then the tire construction and compound changed, and his car, they haven't quite been able to marry that new tire to the Reynard of Villeneuve.
So Villeneuve with his problems. No problems though for Paul Tracy. Al Unser Jr. is still in 2nd place, about 4.5 seconds back, and another 4 seconds back is Emerson Fittipaldi. The Penske cars are still 1, 2, and 3. Back at the Boss Spark Plug Grand Prix on board with Bobby Rahal, we should be very close to the second stops of the day. For the leaders of the race, they continue to be Tracy, Unser Jr., Fittipaldi. 4th place is Raul Boisel, then Fernandez, then Villeneuve is in 6th position, followed by Hansen, Fabi, Michael Andretti, and Mauricio Gugelmin. And boy, look at those Penskes when they come flying by. That's got to be distressing to everybody in the field.
That's why your mirrors, again, are so important here. But Dominic Dobson in that Bank of America Pac West car obviously in trouble, because you see people go outside and inside. He just made a pit stop, but he is unusually slow, so he is definitely in trouble.
Battle for 6th place. Villeneuve, Johansson. Rahal comes in very, very close. Of course, you have the Paul Tracy car, the leader of the race, right in the middle of this battle. The way they've been driving, though, they should clear it fairly quickly. See the fight just ahead. That's Johansson just ahead of you. Then Tracy, then Villeneuve. And there comes Al Unser Jr. So on one onboard camera, we have 2 battles for you.
Well, Rahal is a passenger in that Miller Genuine Draft car, because no matter how much horsepower he lacks, he is not fast through the corners, and he is beginning to get himself into difficulties trying to watch what's going on behind him. Just look at these traffic jams. That's what happens here. The slower car has nowhere to go and run and hide, and the drivers at the drivers' meetings will tell you, do not change your line. Put the onus on the faster car to make the move all the time as Tracy comes in.
So Paul Tracy, he last pitted 76 laps ago. He's there. Here's Jan Beekes.
Here comes Paul Tracy. He does the first part of the job, and that is getting it stopped on the marks. We're going to watch very carefully to see what kind of changes the Penske team makes. We can see behind us that Al Unser Jr. is also set out, and there was no changes that we could see visibly made on Paul Tracy. Just a little over 14 seconds. Gary, here comes Al.
Well, we wait for him, Jan. They laid out for Al Unser Jr., expecting him first. At the very last second, Roger Penske said, no, stay out. Tracy came in. He's completed his stop. The crew is ready for Unser, but he is still on the racetrack, Paul.
Well, he's back on the warm-up lane now as he heads into the pits. Al Unser Jr. picked up the lead for a lap. But now he is on the pit road, Gary Gerald.
And I'm curious, Paul, can you tell us how many laps are completed? Because it may be very close on this load of fuel. They've got to go 73 laps. They would love some yellow, but 73 would be very, very close.
121 laps complete for the leader.
Waiting, cars off the jack, clutches engaged.
127.
There we go, 13.6 seconds. Good stop, Al Unser Jr.
So he's right on the edge of the window.
He's right on the edge. Interesting that there was no pit stop. There was no changes for Paul Tracy, which suggests that his car is handling very, very well as Emerson flies down the pit lane.
So Emerson Fittipaldi now for his what should be final stop of the day. And Jan's there.
We'll also keep our eyes open to see what kind of changes we might see on Emerson Fittipaldi's car after not seeing any whatsoever for Paul Tracy. These Penske cars working very well at this Penske-owned track. So far, everything going according to plan. Looks like the right front is taking a little longer than usual. They're waiting for all the fuel. Emerson off the jacks. 14-1 for Emerson. No visible changes here.
Paul Tracy's already flashed across the line, running at full speed, so not even close coming out. Paul Tracy will reassume the lead of the race as Emerson Fittipaldi tries to bring it back up to speed on these warm-up lanes. That's a Rick Mears innovation, an area the cars can run on while they do come up to speed and also can definitely use when they're warming up in practice.
Emerson on that run did a total of 80 laps. There were 9 yellow flag laps within that, so that does suggest that 72 or 3 laps is easily attainable for this last run with only 70 laps to go from here.
So it's Paul Tracy, Al Unser Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi. The lineup once again after the stops. The intervals remain about the same, though Paul Tracy picked up 2 or 3 seconds on Al Unser Jr. was able to pull another almost 2.5 seconds away with those stops. He now sits 7 seconds ahead of Al Unser Jr.
Great shots here. We're on board Fernandez. That's the Reynard. Emerson looks down the outside. It's the harder move, but he takes the advantage of traffic. Now he's stuck. He's caught.
Caught up behind Mark Smith's car. Drops in behind Matsushita. Back on board Fernandez. Watching for Fittipaldi's next move.
Emerson to the high side again. That Penske is so good on the long way around. You don't have to pull the car to the apex very much, but Fernandez was happy to let him go anyway because he was about to peel off.
Fernandez 82 laps since his last stop, so he'll definitely be stopping well within his fuel window.
And he won't take too many chances. Remember, he led in Vancouver, ran this car out of fuel, but he's safely in now. Fernandez having a tremendous run, currently 5th.
Well, still Rick Gallis and the team are willing to gamble a bit by carrying him that far. Some adjustment to the front wing as Fernandez is ready to go back in the fight. Remember, the flow of the fuel actually controls the time of these spots, and Villeneuve almost gets into the side of Fernandez as he comes out, Gary.
That was pretty close, Paul. There wasn't a lot of room between the two, but young Jacques Villeneuve hit the spot perfectly, and Fernandez had no difficulty as he got through and goes back on course. Tire change already complete. Boy, that was fast. Waiting for that fuel, and as you mentioned, gravity flow tough late in the race. 14.9 seconds, Villeneuve back onto the warm-up lane.
And again, Derek, a substantial adjustment to the front wing.
I lost count of the number of turns they adjusted Villeneuve's front wing, so he's obviously not happy, and Jan Beekes is down with Boisel.
Raul Boisel has received 4 tires. He's got all the fuel. Burns out here. Very quick stop for the Dick Simon team. Remember, he's at pit in, whereas all the other pit stops we saw were on pit out.
So the crew comes over the wall waiting for Willie T. Ribb's stop. The order still maintains static as they run through their stops on green flag. Only 1 yellow of the day. We're averaging 145 miles an hour. That is well below the race record set last year by Nigel Mansell at the Boss Spark Plug Grand Prix. The leader is still Paul Tracy. As you can see, we are under yellow. The reason for this incident was contact between Jacques Villeneuve and Adrian Fernandez. It sent Adrian Fernandez careening off of 3 different walls.
Top of the picture, you can see almost an identical crash to Mario. Heavy impact to the inside, but it's not finished yet. Look at this, still 100 miles an hour. Bang, clouts that outside wall. Fernandez, we do believe, is okay, but look at the right front wheel all the way down through turns 3 and 4.
And here was his view.
He goes outside Villeneuve. That's the key. Watch this. He's outside him now. Boom. Villeneuve moves over, hits him.
Into the onboard camera.
Whoa.
Lost steering on that impact with the wall. That turned him to the inside Armco barrier and completely out of control with regard to steering as he came out to the wall. But the good news is there is Adrian. He limps a bit. We hope he's okay. Obviously, he's not life-threatened. What a wonderful run he had going, though, and to end it against the wall. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Barry Green keeping a track of Jacques Villeneuve. Now tell us what you noted. Did he radio and indicate there was contact?
Well, all we heard, Gary, was just that he touched wheels with Fernandez. I don't know exactly what happened, and we hit him pretty hard, so we decided we'd come back in and put a new set of wheels on just to be sure. Everything looks okay at the back, but I don't know exactly what happened. We're having a little bit of trouble, just loose, loose, loose.
Thank you. That's a recurring theme. We're hearing that loose story all up and down pit road all afternoon, Paul.
Definitely a recurring theme is Derek Daly. Keep an eye on this one. This is the onboard from Fernandez.
Okay, you'll see the impact. Watch the left. Right there, Villeneuve hits him, stuffs him in the wall on the right-hand side. Now he is a passenger. What's the impact? Impact to the inside, and then he goes down. Now what's the top of the screen here? There's Villeneuve in the blue car. He hits him. He puts Fernandez in. We had only just mentioned it. Now let's look at this again. Remember, we had mentioned about looking in your mirrors, being aware of what's going on behind you. Fernandez is obviously quicker. There's Villeneuve moves across. There's the impact. There's Fernandez in the wall. And a Penske car has to take avoiding action as Fernandez goes outside to inside, back to the outside, and the tires follow him all the way down here.
You got a real good indication in that situation, too, the danger of the right front tire in an impact with the wall on the right front as it came sweeping back. Fortunately, it's designed enough in a way that it tries to keep it out of the cockpit, and you saw a very good example of that there. And then, of course, the nose vacating itself as soon as they got to the inside barrier. Watch the right front here.
You'll just see Villeneuve over the right side of Fernandez's helmet. There's the contact. There's right there. Now the wall, and watch the wheel come back. There's the magnesium flash fire. The wheel winds back, goes over the side, but the high cockpit sides of these Indy cars are used to deflect debris or suspension or anything. Oh, Sir Fernandez turns his head to the right, bracing for that second impact.
And 2 points in the danger. One, that the wheel is in fact heavy, but also that it has a gyroscopic energy as it spins around in the air. Well, under yellow, second of the day, Paul Tracy is the leader. We're back in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, the Boss Spark Plug Grand Prix under the second yellow of the day, 144 laps. Paul Tracy was the leader. He still is at 146. Average speed well off the race record. We've had 2 cautions. We're in the second one of the day, and the lead changes have all been among the Penske cars. Here are the cars out of the race. Ari Leyendijk was the first. Mario Andretti in his contact with Eddie Cheever. Robbie Gordon climbed out of the car, as did Nigel Mansell. And of course, we have this situation now with Adrian Fernandez and a question mark in the column alongside Jacques Villeneuve, who was involved in this. Came in, they picked up new tires and sent him back out, but he has been in one time since then. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
We can explain that scenario, Paul. They felt that the set of tires that they took off, they inspected, they appeared to be very good. They liked the way the car had been handling with that set of tires, so they brought him in because he was at the end of this single file procession. They went back to those tires, took the stickers off that were out there for only a couple of laps of yellow, and so he's hoping that he'll be able to move forward from there. Let's go to Jan.
Gary, there were other beneficiaries to that yellow flag. One was Michael Andretti. He's had a tough day, so tough that he ran out of fuel, coasted in, just barely made it to the pit. They were able to put 4 tires on that car because it was a yellow flag, then bring out the starter, get it fired. He didn't lose nearly as much time as if it had been green. Paul?
Well, several drivers, Teo Fabi, Stefan Johansson, Mauricio Gugelmin, and Michael Andretti all benefited from that yellow. They had not yet made their stop, so they were able to come in under the yellow. Second yellow of the day, with Paul Tracy still the leader of the race. We should be back to green flag racing very shortly. We're back in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, continuing under yellow. NFL Prime Monday, ESPN's 90-minute NFL show preceding ABC's Monday Night Football. The host, Mike Trico, will be joined by Joe Theismann and Phil Simms, along with Julie Brown and her special guest, Emmett Smith. NFL Prime Monday tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern right here on ESPN. So we are still under a full course yellow. You ride on Dominic Dobson's car after 149 laps. There's the way they lined up, the battle right there at the front. The Penske team a full 3 laps ahead of everybody else.
And this yellow obviously eliminates any possible fuel problems that anybody may have had, because there is more than enough fuel now in these cars to run the closing laps of this race.
Average speed of the race, 132.2 miles an hour. Let's have some self-indulgence for a moment, though. 2 new babies in the past week and a half. There's Alicia on the left and the new Conrad, Paul Tracy's baby, born at the start of the week. And what about this? Who are these people?
Now there's a pretty picture. I mean, the baby and the one on the left. Yes, that is my new son, Colin, who was born last Friday evening.
And is your wife, Beth, is she back on her jet ski yet?
My wife, Beth, was on the jet ski on that Friday that the baby was born. I locked it up, though. She's not on it right now yet, but she would be if I didn't lock it up.
A most remarkable woman. Congratulations to both the Tracys and to the Dailies. Well, still in her yellow, they've got a lot of water on the course. I was afraid for a moment that it might be fuel, the way one of the safety teams was gesturing. The hoses generally prevent that, and it did again. The Bosch company saying arrivederci to Mario as well, in a plane towing a banner high over the track, and beautiful blue skies here in eastern Pennsylvania, not that far from the border with New Jersey. Murray, let's bring you back in for a second again. Murray Walker. John Watson, your partner, is here in the booth as well, but I think we have to pay him a lot more money if we have to bring him on. What do you think thus far?
It's terrific. It's been action all the way. What impresses me, I think, most of all, Paige, is the way the Penske cars are dominating the race. First, second, and third at the moment, Paul.
We are sending Nigel to you. You sending anybody to us next year?
Well, I know Derek Warwick is trying to get over. He doesn't live too far away from me either, and I know he's been over here several times. I've heard a rumor that he's going to be driving an Alfa Romeo in the British Touring Car Championship, but Derek would like nothing more than to be in single-seaters again and right here. And he would be a fine representative for us.
I think he'd have a good time here. Let's go to the pits and Gary Gerald.
Let's get a quick word, Paul, from John Buzlack, the crew chief for Paul Tracy. Now, you're out there in front, and you were very nearly involved in that Fernandez-Villeneuve incident. Are you concerned about running over any debris or anything like that?
I think everybody's concerned about running over stuff. The drivers can pretty much see what's going on. If he's comfortable and, and confident that he didn't run over anything, then, we just got to go with what he says. It's his call, basically.
Car's working well?
Very well. All the Penske's are working fabulous.
Well, we've heard so many teams talking about how loose they've been. Here's a happy team down here, obviously. 1, 2, 3 again.
Well, and you only have to look at the top of that leaderboard to see how happy they are and how happy they can be as Roger Penske tries to finish in the PPG points, first, second, and third. He is certainly well on his way at the moment. We should come back with a green flag shortly. We're back at the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix, still under yellow here, as they have the oil dry out on the surface that they used to pick up some of the moisture from that last incident, and they're using the jet cleaner to try and blow it off the track. And that echoes once again that concern about debris on the surface, not just the oil dry, but any especially small parts that might cut down a tire and cause a more serious problem.
John, Tracy's crew chief mentioned it earlier, that the drivers can see where they're going, but however, you can't see all the small things that could possibly give you a puncture. We saw Penske eliminate both cars in Phoenix not too long ago when Tracy crashed. Emerson took the lead, and on the green flag lap, something broke in Emerson's car because of debris, and it was all over for the day. I'm not saying that can happen here, but unusual things happen on these 1 mile ovals.
And you can see the way they're aligned behind Johnny Rutherford in the PPG pace car with Paul Tracy, and then Al Unser Jr. 1 car back behind Bosell. The battle will be for the lead very quickly here. In fact, all 3 Penske cars could jump into this fight very quickly.
Also, cleanup takes a little bit longer on oval tracks than normal because you have to be immaculate. We saw clearly 2 and 3 different racing lines through that turn 4 over there, so everything must be clean before they even dare to give them a green flag.
One thing this yellow most certainly would have done, if there is any question about the fuel mileage and the ability to carry the car to the end of the race, that certainly should be a race now, Derek.
There's Bosell, just goes through our picture. He is currently in 4th place. His battle is with Johansson, who you can see is a long, long way back here in the line. We look through the cars as they go through here, but what will Mansell do? Earlier, Paul Page had a chance to sit down with Aaron Nigel to discuss the future.
When the idea of coming here was first described, it was described as a great adventure. Has it in fact ended up to be a great adventure?
Absolutely. I mean, probably more so than anyone could have imagined. And I think what's happened in 1994 just proves to us personally what a great adventure 1993 was and what an accomplishment it was to win the championship.
The fact that you didn't win the Indy 500 while you were here, will that be an empty point in your career or something that you may try and come back at?
I don't think it'll be empty because, I mean, I have come 3rd and it was first time out after I came back from my operation. I think the fact that I've competed in 2 Indy 500s and say I've done it and I enjoyed it, and as you know, we left the Indy 500 this year, not very happy man. I have to say these months later I'm still not very happy at how all that happened. But it was a great experience, and who knows what the future might or might not hold.
Your future then in Formula One. Can you tell us what the plans are?
Unfortunately not. We have to basically keep a tight lip and say you'll have to wait like I will until the end of the year to see what happens.
Well, tight lip, there's the operative word in that interview. We do know he's going to drive 3 Grand Prix at the end of the season. And is that, Derek, do you figure a judgment as to whether or not he'll be able to drive in future years?
I don't know, but Mansell is spectacular. Frank Williams and Renault in particular do want him back in Formula One.
We run green flag once again as the green just comes out. And once again, it will be a battle at the front of the field, and the Penske cars will be involved. But Paul Tracy, owing to his position at the front of the field, was able to get a jump on Raul Boesel and therefore on Al Unser Jr. So as Al Unser Jr. came across the line, he was almost 2 seconds back. That's a long way on an oval, but remember, all it takes is one slight hesitation, and little Al will be right back on the back end of Paul Tracy in a battle for the lead. At the same time, Emerson Fittipaldi has some slower traffic to handle up before he gets back in touch with the leaders of the race.
There's
look at how fast he's done it.
Just into the top of the picture, but watch how quickly that the leading cars get into traffic on this racetrack, which brings you back into this traffic technique that is so important here.
We talk about that time and time again, Derek. How far ahead are you looking? Are you looking all the way across the corner? Do you wish you could see the other straightaway?
There's never the same instance that comes up twice, so you have to make instantaneous judgments. If you have to think about it, it's already too late. You have to drive on instinct when you're in traffic jams that you get into on these 1 mile ovals. But that's what makes them so great.
But further then, this late in the season then, they've driven with these guys all year long in the same equipment. Does that give you a greater confidence level at screaming up behind somebody you've raced with all year?
Well, if I said yes, do you think Fernandez and Cheever would agree with me?
Exactly.
Or Mario?
So at the front of the field, it's still Paul Tracy with Al Unser Jr. trying to catch up. We mentioned earlier what a beautiful day it is, and it brought out a gigantic crowd here, another record crowd for the Indy cars. Take a look there at the edge of the screen. Another brand new grandstand here as part of the improvements that Roger Penske makes. Nibbles away something new every year, every time we come back. A facility that is especially loved by the competitors and the fans. The paddock area is wonderful, and the fans can see everything.
You can see Emerson is closing in on Al Jr. Jr. goes to the high side of Matt Schuster, but here's the traffic jam now that we mentioned.
So now Al Unser Jr. trying to tiptoe his way around and having now to worry about Fittipaldi, who is closing.
To give you an idea of speed here, remember Emerson's qualifying run was above 185 miles an hour, which means at no time on this racetrack, which is virtually all corners, do you ever get below 145 miles an hour. At no time are you slower than that.
Let's move back to 9th place. Michael Andretti has been battling with Mauricio Guzman. Michael passed him just a second ago, but Mauricio is staying right there with him as they're bottled up behind Bobby Rahal.
Big, big struggle for Michael. In the test here 3 weeks ago, had a big crash right there, lost control of the car, backed it into the wall so hard he was unconscious, taken to hospital. He remembers nothing about the day, but he is having a mighty struggle here this afternoon.
The view from Michael Andretti, you saw Tracy sweep past. Now Michael trying to get down inside of Bobby Rahal. Here's the Ford Electronics telemetry from onboard Michael Andretti's car.
Speed on the right. Here's the downhill run. He's obviously behind Rahal, who we know is running slowly because we saw him struggle earlier on. But you can see his speeds are a lot lower than you will expect from the leading cars. So busy, the driver. Look at Rahal wiggle as he turns to the apex. Well, you see Michael's not even flat through the kink here, which is turn 1, but he goes outside Rahal.
Look how careful, though, in and out of the throttle as he moves on to the backside and on the downhill run. Look back at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr. with Fittipaldi right behind him in a fight for second place as they come around Rahal. There's your battle for second. Paul Tracy is 6 seconds ahead of this fight.
You hear the tire squeal? You can hear the tire squeal, and that's understeer or push through that turn 2. Bozell in the middle of the Penske powerhouse here.
The voice of Goodyear, but you would prefer that it not speak too loud.
The voice of Goodyear, whose tires get faster. They are breaking track records at every racetrack they go to. And it's all in preparation for Firestone. Al Spire, the competition manager of Firestone, is here. Look at Al Jr. round the outside decisively of Michael.
Let's go pit side. Remember, we had Adrian Fernandez in that accident, and he was limping as he walked away from the car. What's the medical report, Jan? Anything yet?
Yes, we've had an opportunity to check in with the medical center, and he is okay, but he does have a bruised right ankle, and he is waiting for the doctors, Terry Trammell and company, to come in off the course when the race is over for further evaluation. But Adrian Fernandez, okay.
We saw the front of his car as they took it away on the tow truck. He bruises it because he bangs it off the side, not because anything came into the cockpit.
Still, again, that whole issue of energy that ripples into the cockpit. You try to dissipate most of it, but now and then some of it ends up with the driver. Look at this fight now, Derek.
Well, one of the great safety developments IndyCar has done over the last 10 years is to move the driver further from the impact. And the damage we saw to Fernandez to the front of his car never got into the driver's cockpit. That's what IndyCar wanted to strive to attain, and they did now with Fernandez's crash.
Boy, Fittipaldi is not letting go, and Villeneuve was very definitely tenacious there as well, as he wanted to continue to guard his position. He currently runs in 7th place. Behind him now is Scott Goodyear as he finally moves into the top 10. So 177 laps complete. When we come back, we'll take you all the way to the green flag here at Nazareth. We're back at the Bosch Park Plug Grand Prix. Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It's still a battle within the Penske team, and it's a good one. Penske cars run first, second, and third. You got the top of the lineup, Tracy, Unser Jr., then Fittipaldi, then Raul Boesel, Stefan Johansson, Teo Fabi in sixth. Jacques Villeneuve runs in seventh, then Scott Goodyear. Michael Andretti is now ninth. Mauricio Guzman is in 10th position. 7 seconds behind Paul Tracy is Al Unser. But then Emerson Fittipaldi is doing whatever he can to close in and grab second away from Little Al. See the rest of the field come through here. There's Teo Fabi.
Teo Fabi, 3 fourth places is all he can muster this year. Will leave the team. He's in the middle of the traffic jam. The Penske goes around the outside. He gives them room. Goodyear now closes up on Fabi.
Gives Scott Goodyear a chance to close down in. Let's see if Scott Goodyear can close and pass Fabi.
Goodyear quiet all weekend here, not in a battle with speed, but look at Johansson behind Goodyear.
Johansson is there. He's actually ahead of them in the race itself. A lap ahead as he's trying to come up and lap.
Willie T. Ribbs is in the mix here. He's not in a fight for position. Fabi comes down the inside. Subtle move by Ribbs to go to the outside there. He saw the cars coming. We saw Goodyear just make it under Willie T.
So Scott Goodyear looking for an opportunity to catch up to Teo Fabi, currently running in 6th place. At the front of the field, it's still Paul Tracy.
The problem for the drivers here too is you don't want to back off too much and lose touch with whoever you're fighting with, and yet you don't want to hold up the leaders. So it's a catch-22 situation of how much leeway you give the leaders when they come to lap you.
Speaking of the leaders, there comes Fittipaldi past Goodyear. So in other words, I've got to drive it over 185 miles an hour, watch my front, watch my mirrors, keep it off the wall, and for that you're only going to pay me a couple $1 million a year?
Right, but you have to change your train of thought every couple of seconds also, because things happen so fast here.
No sweat.
Hey, that's what they get paid for.
There's Stefan Johansson. He runs in 5th place. He's actually now a full lap ahead of Teo Fabi. A car that they have done a lot of development with. Engineer Kenny Anderson really been working on shock absorbers and suspension this year with a lot of experience coming off of the Penske team. There's Raul Boesel. Johansson sits just ahead of him. Let's get an update from Jan Beekes.
Raul Boesel is really running first in class in the Lola with the performance of the Penske right now. Dick Simon says that he has not asked for one change throughout the whole duration of this race. That's unlike any other driver. But he says the big difference, the Penske car works fantastic in traffic, and that's where the Lola is struggling.
Paul Tracy just completed his 190th lap. He's averaging 129.8 miles an hour. Not nearly a record. The race record will continue to be held by Nigel Mansell at 158.8 miles an hour.
That is an interesting way to look at it, Jan. First in class, I would think Dick Simon will go back to his shop in Indianapolis well satisfied with his weekend, because they know on performance they cannot really run head-to-head on these short ovals with the likes of these Penskes. They're just too good, too fast, particularly over long runs with 40 gallons of fuel.
Well, as they run right now, if the race were to end in this order, Emerson Fittipaldi would clinch 2nd place. Paul can move into 3rd place with Michael Andretti to 4th, but he could still make it up to 3rd. Robbie Gordon can finish no better than 4th in the PPG points. Now inside that window of the final 10 laps of the race, Paul Tracy, who had the race totally handled last week until a header broke on the car and took him out of the run, gave the win over to Jacques Villeneuve.
And this is also a product of thousands of miles of testing here by Paul Tracy. We've all heard the stories of Penske arriving here, clearing snow from this racetrack to actually continue their test programs.
This is the way they're lined up, and this would be the points if they stay in the same position all the way to the end of the race. Roger Penske keeping track of his team. 194 laps into the record book.
There were stories this weekend here of neighbors local to the racetrack here in Nazareth who heard racing cars testing back in April. They came to the front gate and it was locked. Why? Because that's when Penske was testing the new Mercedes-Benz engine that he took to Indianapolis and dominated the race with.
Now the closing portions of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. Paul Tracy out in front by 5.7 seconds. Trying to make up for last week. So many times this year he has been in position to win, and then tragedy strikes and pulls him out of the run.
And don't get too confident, even if there is only 3 laps to go, because the speed they run at, anything can still happen. Tracy is mindful of that and has tripped over cars in the past. But he has a nice cushion over Al Jr.
Battle running to the finish, if it develops, will be between Fittipaldi and Unser Jr. in a battle for second place. Right now they are separated with just 2 laps to go. 2 miles to run, and Paul Tracy will notch yet another win, the 7th of his career. White flag comes out. The final mile for Paul Tracy. Down the backside, Unser and Fittipaldi, neither one in contest as we're in the final lap now. Paul Tracy making that final turn in. And ahead, the checkered flag waits. Jim Swintal has it. And Paul Tracy has scored his first oval victory of his career. There's his mentor, Rick Mears, who was a master on the ovals, but still very competent on road courses, as Fittipaldi and Unser Jr. with no fight. And Unser Jr. finishes second. Fittipaldi will come around in third.
You mentioned Rick Mears. Paul Tracy works very closely with Rick Mears. They have a good personal relationship. Rick Mears literally trying to teach Paul all that Rick knows, because he was the master, particularly on these ovals. A successful day, not just for Tracy, but also for Rick Mears on the team.
And for Penske Racing, the 11th victory for Penske Racing this year. When we come back, we'll talk with our new winner of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. Well, the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix has run to conclusion. It's 200 miles, 2 yellow flags, no serious injuries. And unofficially right now, though it seems to be not in contest at all, it'll be Paul Tracy that is scored in the win column, followed by Al Unser Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi. Here is the rest of the top of the order. And we'll take a look down at the top 12 positions, unofficial results. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
We've talked about Rick Mears and how closely you work, Rick, with Paul. How gratifying is this for you, being on the sidelines as opposed to behind the wheel?
It's very gratifying. I mean, it's exciting. It's a different excitement, but it's great. You know, to be involved with the team and to be able to accomplish what we did today. It's a good feeling.
How bad did you want to get behind the wheel? This is one of your favorite places, isn't it?
Oh, this is. It's definitely one of my favorite tracks, but I haven't had the urge. I'm having fun where I'm at.
What kind of tricks do you give Paul? How do you tell this guy to do that? It was amazing today.
I tell you, you don't really have to tell Paul to do anything. He knows what to do out there. He drove a tremendous race, working the traffic. This track is one of the toughest for traffic, and he stayed out of trouble, just did a great job all day long. The guys gave him some good quick stops, got him back out. I was glad to see him get this one under his belt.
Rick Mears enjoying his new position. And then speak about enjoying positions, Gary Gerald is up in victory lane with all 3 Penske drivers.
High praise for Paul Tracy from Rick Mears, kind of been a mentor for you. Now in this race today, so many things to talk about. First, let's go back to the disappointment of Vancouver and Elkhart the last 2 weeks, where you seemed to be controlling a race and then ended up on the sidelines. So what's the feeling today when you persevere, you get through and get that second win?
Well, I think it's whole credit to the team. You know, we had a rough couple races, and I had a lot of anxiety with my wife having a baby, and I said some things getting out of the car that I don't think I should have about our motors and how the car was working. But the guys came through today. We had all the motor in the world. The car was working great all day. I was a little bit nervous when I came up on Al to lap him, and he went away from me. So I was a little bit nervous that he got his car working, but we were able to hold him off in the end.
So much pressure with the constant traffic at the high speed. Now, we think that you may have been very close to the Fernandez-Villeneuve contact.
No, I didn't see it at all. There was a lot of traffic, and but I've done a lot of miles, and I know a lot of different lines around here with all the testing I've done with Marlboro Team Penske, and I guess I could say it's just like another test, but with 28 cars on the track.
And you're battling, of course, for third place in the championship standings. You gain ground on Michael today. We don't have the final numbers right now, but I know that's important. But also this ongoing question, where's Paul Tracy going to be next year? How big a relief is it going to be to finally have a decision, which I guess could go until as late as mid-October?
Well, it really could. You know, I don't know what the decision is yet, but this I hope this helps my cause a little bit. We've been waiting for this win for quite a while. We've been in position to win some races with the Marlboro team, but they haven't come. But you know, this one feels good. First oval win.
Now wait a minute. I got to ask you one more question. The Victory Pliers, the crew was giving you a bad time about. What's the story of the Victory Pliers?
I've been bugging my mechanic Scott St. Peter all year. He says if I won the race, I wanted his pliers, and he said you got to win the race first. And I said okay, I'll get it done.
Enjoy those pliers.
Thanks.
All right, Paul.
So Paul Tracy finishes in first place. It puts him locked in a battle with Michael Andretti for third place. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
Raul Boisel, today is really first in class for you. I know you wanted to be obviously up there in victory circle, but it's really a victory in a way.
Yeah, my car ran well all day. My Duracell Lola was perfect. We lose a little bit in traffic. Seems like the Penske conserve more the tires. But as you say, first in class, we put a lap on the field other than the Penske, so we couldn't keep up with them. But I think it was a good race for us, considering we beat everybody else.
Dick was saying that you were having a difficult time in traffic. Is that what made the difference?
Yeah, I think their car is more stable when behind other cars, and so they don't need to use as much track as we need when you're behind. So they have more. It's easy to go around, and I need to find my way and fight my way to go and make places.
Raul Boisel fighting his way to the top. Let's go back to victory circle and Gary Gerald.
The other two members of the Penske team, Al Unser Jr., who talked and savored the championship last week. You started 18th today, but it took, 30 laps to get up there in the top three and to battle with your teammates. A lot of satisfaction, I would think, of being able to get through that maze of traffic.
Yeah, well, the Marlboro car was just handling beautiful today, and thanks to the team, I tell you what, all the guys did a great job on the whole team. I congratulate Paul for doing a wonderful job today, and it was just it was a great day at the races. We started a little bit back, and that may have cost us a little bit, but there at the end with that last yellow, we were right there with him, and Paul I think he was holding back a little during the race.
Emerson, you were up on Junior's bumper there late, and then the traffic played into it, but the important thing for you, I guess, is the fact that you have now clinched second place in this championship to your teammate. Tell us about your day in this 200 miles.
Well, Gary, first I'm very happy to finish second at the championship. Again, Junior had incredible championship. Great to be second to Junior, and Paul had a fantastic race today. I mean, he was dominating the race, and he was going fast. And on the last yellow, I was right behind Junior trying to see if I could catch Paul, but he couldn't do it. And then I hit traffic, and Junior broke away from me. I mean, it was a great race. I'm very pleased.
The fifth time this year that these men have gone 1, 2, 3, Paul.
So first and second place in the PPG points are locked up. Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti will still battle for third place as we go to the final race of the season at Laguna Seca, California. We'll be right back. Very happy Paul Tracy celebrates his second win of this year, and along with his Penske team, his first oval victory. So they're still unofficial, but here are the final results. Teo Fabi with a very nice run, finishing up in 6th place, and we'll take you down all the way through the field now. Good run, too, for Scott Goodyear, winner of the Michigan 500 this year. The rest of the field, well, we have a very, very happy Jimmy Vasser. They said on his two-way radio that he was screaming with joy and ecstasy at the last laps of this race. So he apparently had a run that was fine for him. Mario Andretti in front of his hometown crowd, unfortunately, the second car out of the event. And Penske Racing continues to be formidable as we go to the final race of the IndyCar season. The team talking over their day, though they never got in close contest. If they had, it would have been a marvelous fight. Let's take a look at the PPG points right now. The first two positions are locked. Tracy and Michael will battle for third. Robbie Gordon can finish as high as fourth. Nigel Mansell will still search for his only victory now in this 1994 season. And that victory very possibly could come at the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Bank of America 300. We'll be live on ESPN2 October 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, with tape delayed coverage on ESPN later that night at 8:30 Eastern and 5:30 Pacific. So another interesting run here. The miles are still terrific.
And how do you beat the Penske powerhouse? Well, you build a better mousetrap. That's what everybody else has to do. As regards Paul's comment about his emotional outbursts, Paul, don't worry about those emotional outbursts. I personally think it's great to see the human side of a driver rather than the corporate perfect as you think you should be.
That's a thought that, by the way, seems to be echoed up and down the grandstand. He just calls them like he sees them, and that is great to see. So Paul Tracy has taken the victory. Coming up next, we'll have more racing for you. IHRA drag racing from Norwalk, Ohio, the Sportsman Series. That will be coming up next. So congratulations to Paul Tracy and indeed Penske Racing. I'm Paul Page for Derek Daly, Jan Beekes, Gary Gerald, Murray Walker, and John Watson. So long from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.